academics and sports. This gave me great experience in endurance, persistence, and patience. I learned to work well with others and that decisions made by the group were much stronger than any individual could achieve. I also learned that dedication and hard work were the cornerstones to self-promotion. After college, I became a social worker for the state of Oklahoma in the United States. I held many positions working with single parents, the aged, blind, disabled, in long-term care, and then finally the last 14 years I spent working for the State Advocate General. Working for the Advocate General afforded me the opportunity to work as an advocate for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. It was a true passion and pleasure to work with this group of people. I also worked as an investigator of abuse, neglect, maltreatment, financial exploitation, sexual abuse, and even deaths of both people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and children placed outside of their home. The last 6 years, I was a program supervisor for our intake unit, advocates, and investigators. Suddenly, in 2003, I was no longer mentally capable of performing my job duties. And knowing it was the best thing for the department, I retired on disability. 1 year later, I was diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia, or FTD, a disease of the frontal and temporal regions of the brain. This disease is terminal and there's no treatment for slowing the progression at this time. The average life expectancy is 2 to 10 years, according to most sources, so I've beat the odds already. So I was retired years earlier than I ever imagined. I spent 9 years sitting at home ready to die. After all, the neurologist had given me a life expectancy of 1 to 2 years, and I had followed his suggestion of getting my affairs in order. Withdrawal, apathy, isolation, and agoraphobia had set in. Whether this was due to my diagnosis or my loss of interest in life has become obvious to me. Then one day I got on my computer and accidentally found a support group for people with FTD. I joined and then was referred to a second group for anyone with dementia. Through these groups, I began to think again and to ask questions. I also listened to the questions and responses of others, noting minimally the way people were having to learn about their diseases, as well as how they were making life changes to accommodate the challenges. I learned there were a great many in my situation who were having to rely on each other and social media for answers to their numerous questions. I still dealt with a great deal of isolation and apathy. One day there was a post asking if anyone was interested in participating in a production, with the actors being people with dementia. The organization was called To Whom I May Concern, which is a series of plays to educate others on what life with dementia is like. I met and worked with peers who will always remain very close to my heart. I was also introduced to Laura Boley and Maureen Matthews, who I have been truly blessed to have in my life. This led to my participation in a new memory cafe, which was being started by Laura. I take great pleasure in having named it Cafe La Brain. We meet online monthly. I also attend the monthly Meeting of the Minds webinars of interest to those living with dementia, hosted by Laura and Richard Taylor. Somewhere along the way, through all of this involvement, I lost a great deal of the apathy I had been dealing with. It was also helping me to start working on the agoraphobia. I have been fortunate enough to find a new passion and the means to be a self-advocate and advocate for people living with dementia. A return to the dream I thought dementia had robbed me of. I had witnessed firsthand and was well aware of the long, hard road people with intellectual and developmental disabilities had walked to find their place in the community, to have person-centered services provided to them, and to tear down the walls of the institutions they had been sentenced to life in. We don't need to repeat that path. Rather, we need to learn from the mistakes made on their behalf and move forward. Communication and knowledge is the key. I am proud to say I am a co-founder and co-chairman of of the board for a new organization called Dementia Alliance International. I am very proud of the work we are doing and the progress being made since our inception in January of 2014. I believe strongly in our vision, which is a world where a person with dementia continues to be fully valued. I am a living example of what happens when you take away the value from someone's life. I am also an example of the wonderful things that can happen when you take that value back. Dementia Alliance International is the vehicle to a better quality of life for each of its members who wish to live in a world where they are participants and not spectators. I want to be sure everyone is clear on DAI's mission, which is to build a global community of people with dementia collaborating inclusively, to provide support to live well with dementia, to model to others, advocate for people with dementia, and reduce stigma and discrimination and ensure our human rights. Let me explain how DAI plans to remain sustainable over the years. It is through utilizing our human resources and identifying financial means. There is currently a 7-member board of directors, which will increase to 12 in January of 2015. We have a group which is called the Circle of Friends, to be comprised of 30 individuals with dementia who want to work on special projects and ongoing administrative tasks while being mentored by board members, if their interests lie in a future role on the board.